All right, Preston Durnford, right?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
South Coast Chronicles, owner of Fresh Start and Epic Journey,
Yeah.
and author of Epic Journal.
The Epic Journal.
Right. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a minute, but love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Our purpose of this is just to get to know people and hear their stories in recovery and how you've overcome addiction and mental health. And so, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm glad we got to chat a little bit before.
Yeah.
We know a lot of the similar people.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were talking about Frankie Garcia. He was sitting right here 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Where do I start?
Well, let's just start at the beginning. Tell me about where you're from. Where were you born?
Yeah. So I was born out in Palm Springs, California, and then I moved when I was about 7 or 8 out to Lake Havasu.
Okay.
Parents split when I was probably about 8 years old, and then my mom took us out to Lake Havasu. And
you remember anything about your parents being married? Normal household? Not a normal household?
No, I remember I was my dad had a concrete company called Pacific Concrete and Design. My dad was a squirrely kind of bull in a china cabinet, really charismatic, but just cowboy. Yeah. And yeah, it was kind of chaotic in the beginning. I have this one memory, and it sticks out every time. But I know we rode 4-wheelers, and we had these other good times. But it's kind of like the bad ones that kind of stick out first, for whatever reason. But I remember my mom had, I don't know, someone was over at the house. My dad got into some conflict with some guy. It was like a 2-story building, a 2-story house. So there's the stairs. And then there was a little second part where it would turn and go up. And I remember I was a little kid at the bottom hearing my dad, yelling at this guy. And I was looking up at my dad, and they were by the railing. And he said something to my dad. And my dad ran and boom, tackled him through the wooden railing off the second story onto a glass table.
They both went over.
Yeah, because this guy was saying something to my mom or whatever in the house. And my dad just boom, through the wood on the glass table. And then just started boom, boom, hitting him. And I'm sitting there as this little kid, not scared.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was kind of badass.
You didn't remember being scared? You remember
going, no, because
cool.
He was talking bad to my mom and my dad, I remember. And then I watched my dad like Superman through the wooden rail.
It's funny, little kids talk, my dad will beat up your dad.
Yeah.
And your dad really did it right in front of you, right?
He was, man. He was a straight cowboy. So, yeah, it was then they got divorced. My mom moved out there, and, between both of them, my mom would date other guys, and my dad was that person, they're divorced, but no one was allowed to date my mom, so he would drive out from Palm Springs and, go up and wrestle up these guys, and constantly saw brawls and, all that crazy stuff. And then on top of living in Lake Havasu, my mom, she was a little hot blonde out there, and, so at those times, it was, different guys and, all this kind of fun but yet chaotic stuff. My dad was always coming out trying to fight one of her boyfriends or something like that. So it was kind of always kind of used to that.
You remember how that felt when your parents split and you moved?
Not really, man. It was sad leaving my pops. I remember it was pretty sad because my mom would drive us out to visit him, and I remember the sad part is driving away. My brother and I would be in the back of watch my mom's van, and just watching him tear up. But my dad, he was doing pretty well when we left, but he had this fire to get his kids back. And my dad became, pretty successful doing concrete and some real estate stuff. He was a hustler, that's for sure. And then eventually bought my mom a house. And then, she left Lake Havasu with us. And then, we lived closer to my dad out in La Quinta.
Okay, so after they got divorced, so you guys could be close to him.
Yeah.
So he was a committed father.
Oh, yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, then we moved out to La Quinta when I was about 12. So, yeah, then, started out living out in the desert. So as far as, anything substance abuse related, I smoke. I remember, smoking pot when I was probably 10.
First time?
Yeah, I had a Coors, too. I took one of my mom's beers, and I had this troubled friend who's a little bit older than me, grew up in probably a chaotic house, thinking about that now. And I remember, I got some of my brother's weed. My brother was probably 6 years older than me.
You just had one brother?
Yeah, just one brother. And, I remember having a beer, and my friend showed me how to turn a beer can into a little pipe thing, And so,
Poke all the holes and then a hole in
yeah,
the
yeah,
side.
yeah. So I remember doing that, and then, just kind of being, connected with a lot of friends when I moved out to La Quinta. Really nervous, of course, going to a new school, new friends, and what I did growing up when I was out in Lake Havasu, I raced BMX, and I did every sport, and hated school but loved my sports. And then when I came out to La Quinta, I started racing BMX again and motocross.
So you were 10 when you went to La Quinta?
12.
12,
yeah.
okay.
So, just kind of always at the skate park.
Yeah.
If I ditched school, where Preston was, I'd be at the skate park by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So grew up in that world. Do you remember what it was like the first time you smoked pot and drank, or?
Not really, man. I mean, I remember it was fun when I started getting 12 or 13, maybe 14. It wasn't bad. It was like we'd all go out to the park after skateboarding and smoke on the hilltop, all of us, and giggling and
laugh a little bit and eat M&Ms.
Yeah. I didn't seem. I mean, I don't have any crazy times about it. Probably got a little chunky from the munchies about it, but I don't remember.
I remember being that age and just back then it was, for me, it was the 80s, early 80s, and they had, Nancy Reagan's just say no. And we were smoking weed, and I was like, what is wrong with this? What? This is fun. You get a little stoned and, you laugh a little bit, hang out with your friends, and hadn't had any consequences yet.
No.
But yeah.
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 It wasn't, I mean, it evolved, it's 14, 15 years old. I hated school.
So who was Preston in high school? Take me through high school, freshman year on. So.
Well, I dropped out when I was probably 14 or 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was.
So you were that kid,
Yeah, I failed all the way from 6th grade. When I got out here, I failed at school.
Okay.
Hated it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do, all
Right.
that, and I need to be stimulated too. I wasn't stimulated by learning math, any of that stuff, so it was really hard for me to concentrate. But where I thrived was my sports. I would obsess, and I would, if that was the, I mean, that's what, my household could have been a little chaotic.
Yeah.
Certainly was. But if I had my sports, that was my freedom. My bike was my freedom, and I can just go and get away and become recognized. The moment I got good at it, then I was someone. In school, I was just the dummy that hated doing homework. But then you'd see me at the skate park or racing, and then I was the guy, and it was nice to be recognized.
And you competed in BMX.
Yeah.
And did really well.
Yeah.
So take me through that.
Yeah, I mean, I started out in Lake Havasu, racing at Sarah Park, and did really well. And remember getting my clips. You go from just really regular flat pedals, and then I evolved into clips where you get a little second gear going, because with clips you push down and pull up, so you get a second gear. And the moment I got those on too, and and then once I got a little recognition, I was getting all the first place and second place, and then it was unstoppable, man.
Yeah.
And then I came out here, and then I put that towards skate parks, and then I started just riding skate parks and dirt jumps and stuff like that. So
Nice.
And dirt bikes and stuff too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're doing all that, and in that world, there's a little bit of partying going on.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, none of that was. It was just a skate park kid.
Yeah.
But what happened when I was about 14, I worked really hard. My dad let me work for him as a laborer too. So eventually I dropped out when I was probably 15, 14 and a half, 15 years old. Hated school. My dad's like, you know what? You hate school, so you're going to come work for me. I was like, yes.
Right.
He allowed me to do that for whatever reason, but I loved being around my dad, watching him do business deals, schmoozing, making things happen, him coming on the job site, everyone hooting and hollering for him, and he was just this cool dude pulling up, jamming the Eagles or Pink Floyd, cool truck, just had the long hair, and had just a cool little charisma going on about him, and I always really enjoyed that. And then, I took that, I was like, I'm done with school. He's like, well, I'm going to teach you business. And then I was out of school, and then I had my first truck is a big lifted F-150. I got it when I was about 17, and everyone stayed in school, and pull up to the parking lots in my big lifted badass truck.
Yeah, because you're out working, making
Yeah,
money.
you know, and
Yeah.
I pull up and after school's over, you know, and thought I was super cool, and you know, I ended up being the guy with, you know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So you got your truck, life's going good. At
Yeah.
17, no real consequences.
Not really, no.
Just having a ball.
Yeah.
And your brother's 6 years older than you.
Yeah.
And so what was he doing?
So
Like,
my brother was always like the party. Even when we were out in Lake Havasu, he hung around like a lot of guys doing pills and coke and stuff. And you know, I had no mentor. My dad wasn't really in my life too much. He was really busy, like working a lot. And my brother was my everything. You know, we were attached at the hip our whole life. And we did a lot of snowboard trips, and he rode motocross with me sometimes, and we worked together. We got apartments together. You know, like I used to live over by where you're saying you lived.
Yeah.
But I lived on these apartments. When I got an apartment, I was like 17 years old out here.
with your brother.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I kind of grew up really fast, and then my brother was always doing pills and coke, and I never really started till I was probably 17, 16, and then I went back out to the desert after living out here, and you know, I remember my brother was smoking heroin on a foil, you know, and so I tried it, and kind of got sick and all that stuff, you know, but you know, everyone was doing it. There's no consequences, and everyone's having fun and just doing this thing, and I just followed because I had no one else telling me not to, and I didn't know anything about drugs really. And yeah, before you know it, maybe a few weeks later, my buddy calls me to go out and ride, and I was like, man, I'm sick. And he's like, what? He's like, you're withdrawing because you've been smoking that freaking heroin.
And you didn't even know
No.
that it did that to you.
No, I
You're
was like,
what do you mean?
withdrawals?
Yeah.
What do you mean? And then I just couldn't get away from it. I couldn't get away from the crowd. I had no one guiding me to go in a different direction, man.
So
Like,
that's at 17.
17,
You
yeah.
got hooked on heroin.
Then maybe a year, 2 years later, we were going out to Lake Havasu, and I remember coming out of one of my brother's friends, this guy and his wife. They had this house, and it looked like they had it going on. A cool house out there. They had jobs. It was clean. It was this really, like, didn't look like the trap house or anything like that. Well, my brother and I said we were never going to shoot up. So my brother comes out. After a while, you smoke heroin. It gets kind of hard to get high after a bit, you know. But then you're the next level of shooting it.
So you're smoking it. So let me back you up real quick. I
Yeah.
want to pick up where we left off
For
in a
sure.
second. So when your buddy goes, you're sick
Yeah.
because you're withdrawing.
Yeah.
Did you go get some more heroin and then
For
felt
sure.
better right away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. I'm like, oh, well, then that fixes me.
Right.
And it sucked.
I don't need to go to the doctor. I just need to smoke some more heroin.
No, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like this lost pup that had no you know?
Yeah.
So my brother's doing it. His friends are doing it. My friends. And
Did
like,
your dad have any clue?
no, not
None.
really. Because I was living over at my mom's house.
You're going to work for him, but you're still working.
Yeah. He had no clue. You know, my brother had to get right in the morning to go to work, and so I ended up having to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're out. You go to this house, and you and your brother hadn't shot up yet.
Yeah, he comes out, you know, coming out nodding, and I see blood going down his arm. I'm like, and I got pissed. My brother and I were always scrapping with each other. Like, my brother and I got fist fights all the time. Him and I were really scrappy dudes.
Yeah.
You know, since I was younger. And he came out, and of course I got really aggressive. What the fuck, you know? And you know, then he ended up letting me do it. And I was like, well, if you're gonna do it, then I'm gonna try it.
Right.
They ended up shooting me up, and I mean, oh my gosh, you know, like I remember that was like, it was a long time ago, but I remember it was pretty amazing. And then it was off and running from there.
Wow.
Shooting it up, yeah.
Okay. And then take me down that path. How did it start? Like, it started like that, but how did like the beginning stages go, or was it just like from the time you shot up, then that was what you did?
Yeah, after I shot up, that was it. You know, I mean, there was no going back after that. Like, it's really interesting you even asking me that, because like, it's such a long time ago that I just don't ever, it was just so blurry because there was probably, we're doing Xanax and all that stuff. So there's a big chunk of my life I remember it's a little spotty.
It's just fuzzy.
Yeah, super fuzzy for years. you know, so it was typically going, you know, I didn't get off it till I was 24. But there was years of going, you know, like it just kind of going down into a path where I started evolving, and, you know, selling the drugs came into play, and, you know, big players of moving, you know, a lot of it was around, and I was super scared of it. I always had this intuition to where, like, I never really went down that path. It'd be a little bit I'd sell or whatever, but I was always too scared, man, because I went to jail my first time, and that was terrifying.
When was that? How old were you?
I went juvenile hall in Huntington Beach my first time. Like, we came out here when I was like 15 just to be homeless for the summer, and then went back to the desert. But that was scary. But I went to jail a few different times, just probably possession and stuff, or fighting, or just being under the influence.
Yeah. From
what I remember. But I went to jail when I was probably 21 or 22. You know, this guy, I was in there, I was looking at a case for like 15 years in prison, just being affiliated with these guys and what they did.
Were?
Yeah. Because they did some crazy stuff, came to my house in the morning, and I drove them back home. And when I went to drive them back home, not knowing what they did the night before, just being a homie and taking them home, as I'm backing out, you know, undercovers came up and get out of the truck, da-da-da. I'm like,
and you were with them.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And no clue. You know, they're interrogating me in jail. I'm like, you guys, I have no idea. You don't lie to us. I'm like, okay, man, I'm hurting. Like, I'm withdrawing right now. Can I get out of here?
Right.
Like, no, you got to sit in jail. And while I was in there, there was this guy in the tank, and he was looking at life. And when I went in there, one of my buddies was in and out of jail for, you know, since he was a teen, and he told me, he's like, hey, you only want to go in with white guys. I said, okay. So I told him, hey, I only want to go in with the white guys.
Right.
So it was like the Southsiders, right, and the white boys.
Yeah.
I'm this young pup. I go in there. I don't even know what that means. So they put me in like the high power tank, and not general population. And I'm sitting in there, and they're like, what are you doing in here, youngster? Like, I don't know. My friend told me you come over here.
Told you to go in with the white guys, right?
Yeah, dude, go with the white dudes. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm in there, and he's like, we only sleep with our whites on, like, not the oranges. I'm like, all right, man. Like, I'm kicking heroin here, and I'm like, okay, but I couldn't. I was in there shivering, and I got some fruit punch before we went to bed. It was on the end of my bed. I was on the top bunk. First off, when I get into the cell, I come in there like, oh, what's that white boy, da-da-da. And
you're like, what, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah, maybe 19, maybe 20, 21, something right in there. And I come in, and he cuts up my sheets, pulls a shank out, and cuts my sheets up for me when I walk in. He's like, let me hook up your sheets. And started hooking it up and made my bed for me, whatever. And I was on the top bunk, and when I was like twitching at night, like kind of like, you know, kicking heroin, I like kicked a red cup. And it went down and hit his bunk. Meanwhile, not sleeping in, I don't know, whatever rule is so ridiculous, but I was sleeping with my orange jumpsuit on because I was cold, whatever. And I kicked it over, and it fell on him, and he woke up in the middle of the night pissed. You know, he's like, well, we're going to handle this in the morning, and you're sleeping in your oranges. I'm like, dude. So anyways, they were extremely hard on me in there, and they ended up putting it really hard. They're like pressuring me in there, and I remember they're like, I don't know, whatever it was like 123 burpees, or they're going to give me 23 seconds of whoop my ass or whatever. And I was like, I'll do the burpees, dude. And I was trying to do these burpees, and I couldn't make it. I was just like, I just was hurting, man. And they ended up all like motivating me. The whole tank got, come on, man, let's go. And I made it, and they were super hard, scaring the hell out of me. And I'm about to get bailed out. I guess I didn't know that, and my dad bailed me out. But before this happens, they were all sitting there, and the sheriff comes in. Hey, Preston, you got to roll it up, and they had some time to sit with me. They're like, man, the guy that was just looking at life below me had the, you know, kindness in his heart to even still do this. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I see a lot of potential with you. He's like, I don't ever want to see you back in here. He's like, if I ever do, you know, it's going to be serious. And yes, sir. Yeah, man, you know, and so they were really hard on me, man. And but still, you know, even him looking at life, you know, like him doing that, I never went to jail again. Meanwhile, I went out to some, I went out still doing the same stuff,
Right.
but like so cautious.
Yeah.
And it just, another blur of just going to work like a diabetic, man. Like I wasn't like getting any trouble. I would go to work, I'd get my dope, didn't want to hang out with anyone, and just repeat. Use my drugs, go and dig ditches and do concrete or whatever, and repeat. Try to ride some bikes and try to go out and ride a dirt bike here and there, but it just wasn't.
But all that stuff had kind of gone away.
Yeah, it just like I always wanted it.
Right.
I wanted to get sober so bad, man. But like, what happened was, I ended up going to these county-funded detoxes, like the Gibson House and Gibson House in San Bernardino. So it's like you come straight from prison or right from the streets, and you see it through Medi-Cal. But it's a pretty hardcore spot, and I was a little shithead, so it was a great spot for me. But I would come in there currently dependent on like opiates, and so I'd have to like sit in the bunk with all these dudes, and I would have to sit there and try to shake it out. And
because there's no medical detoxes in those places, right? So,
so I just can never make it through, and and then after all those times, I did about 6 or 7 times, never can make it, and my brother ended up getting sober about 2 or 3 years before me, working at the Gibson House.
You got sober there?
Yeah. He got sober there. He ended up becoming a case manager, even worked there while I was there, and even kicked me out because I got some dude from prison, like got some dope thrown over the wall. My brother kicked me out.
Oh, wow.
And he would still check on me. He was like, and then, but the really cool thing is like, he started to become this mentor, like he was a badass dude, charismatic, jack, stud, dated hot girls, you know what I mean? Like he was a stud, so much potential. And so he ended up getting sober, and this was like Instagram was just starting or something like that. And I had one, and I see my brother going out to Lake Havasu, and he started to have, make like a little bit of money because we didn't really have much, and he was had girls, he was jacked, all tan, it looked like so much fun, and wasn't using. And he would call and check on me, and he used to call me P. He's like, P, you ready? I was like, I'm still out here, man, like, like whatever excuses. And, over time of him trying, he eventually ended up getting me insurance and got me into like a subacute detox.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, and that was the last time I ever did it. That was in 4/4/14.
Okay. 2014.
Yeah.
April 4th.
Coming up.
Nice. What was that first day like? You going to subacute detox?
So
do you mind if I ask you which one you went to? Or?
I went to New Start.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's a crazy story too. So Lindsay, who you met over at Fresh Start, she's the admissions girl. So crazy. So I go in there. I'll load. I don't remember going in there, but I bought new clothes. I bought a new suitcase and went clothes shopping. I'm going to rehab and bought all new clothes.
Gonna have brand new clothes, so I look good.
Yeah, I went to Old Navy, I remember, and I went in there and I met Lindsay, who runs the whole program, and she ended up being like my bud in there, and it was so cool. And I got through my detox. I cheeked some Xanax because that's what I knew in the past, like that maybe that helped, and I had some in the cheeks and ate those in the first day and whatever, but stayed in there, and eventually went up to Serenity Lodge up in Lake Arrowhead.
Right.
And my brother ended up going from Gibson House and then worked at Serenity Lodge as a case manager when Serenity Lodge was just starting. And I ended up going up there, and like not very athletic for many years, like, and coming off, I only did 14 days or something like that. Then my first day, my brother was he was the guy, like the activities guy.
Yeah.
First day I go up and they're playing softball, and I still got chicken skin, he's like, Pete, come on, man, get up the bat. I'm like, dude, I'm seeing double, man.
Right.
And I just started, that was the last time, man. It was just, I started having fun up there. I met friends. I got away from the withdrawals, I tried, man. Yeah. It was so hard. I wanted it so bad, but I didn't know these existed. I had no idea. And I would pray for years and cry, man, and just like watching all my like idols who I now know in action sports world, you know, like I want that, you know, watch and constantly obsessing or watching like Nitro Circus and the Red Bull guys and this, they're having fun, and I would always be on repeat as I was like back home from work. I wanted it, man. And as soon as I got it together, you know, there was this big part where, you know, which I think is really important for people, and I just got reminded of this recently with a client, is, you know, I was going to just do 30 days up there. And I was waiting for that to count down. Then I started having fun. I'm working out. I'm getting, you know, getting a little size in there, bulking up a little bit, and starting to feel good. But I wanted to get back out to life so much. And
we're all such in a hurry.
Man. To what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hurry up. Go sign up for more stress.
Yeah, $20 in my bank account probably. Like, I had nothing, man. And, you know, one of the case managers is Joseph Cluett. Really cool dude. Shout out Joseph, man. And he's like, Preston, I want you to do 2 more weeks. I want you to do 45 days. I'm like, don't you dare. Don't you dare, you know? Like, I was like, I'm going out to the beach, you know, so committed to it. And he's like, look, man, I really want you to do this, but do it for you. This is going to be a big deal. You're not doing it for me. I'm going to go home. My life's going to be just fine. But I want you to do this. And I was fighting it. And he flipped a coin, heads or tails, and it landed, you know, and I committed the 14 days. That little 2 weeks.
Right.
Which I just didn't, I forgot how important that was until like last week. That little thing for you, that little, you know, it could be a few days, 5, you know, like it's so important. And I completed it and came down here to Ohio House.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, with Brandon Stump, and met another like mentor guy, like a part of a pack that I was just with a buddy, Tony Pera, that opened up another program out this way. And, you know, there's a pack of us that did really well. You got like Jack Petty started amazing spots.
Doing great.
Buck Taplin's doing great. And Tony Pera. There's like this crew that were all there that, you know, because Brandon was so involved. And it was like another mentor. And we watched him, you know, and the way he did it, man, was so special. And we had fun. And yeah, man, it was like a really big thing to get right into that community. It was really important.
Yeah.
You know,
you talking about that, I mean, I just have the first memory. And mine was around softball, right?
Yeah.
Like, fuck, I can be sober and have fun.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
You know, and first time I got sober, I was in my early 20s. I went and played softball with a bunch of guys from the Newport Club. And I was like, that was a blast.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, man, you know, and I think that's so important for especially younger people getting sober. Yeah. To just know that you don't need that crap.
And not saying you using dope and all that's fun at all.
It's not. But that's why we start doing it. It's because we're chasing fun, right?
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's only fun for so long.
Yeah.
You know, and like the big thing is like, you know, like I learned from my brother of how cool he was with people and a really inspiring guy, and these other guys that I kind of looked up to that were like the people that people look to, you know, like the Lighthouse, you know, like, and when I started having fun, I got away from it, and I still had these I was like shedding layers like a snake, you know, like I wasn't supposed to have my car for 30 days. I drove out to the desert and got my truck and hit it down the street. Sorry, Brandon. And
did you get caught?
No, no.
So now you just ratted yourself
Yeah, no,
out.
dang it. All right, crap. So. And then, you know, I had these like bad behavior, you know, I was like shedding this from the street, being a street kid, you know, and just kind of shedding these layers. And then, you know, went into AA and kind of tried that I did it for years. That was an interesting path of who ended up sponsoring me and stuff. But like, I have my own theory on some of those things. But it was really, really good. The community was so important. And then to be around people that had the same struggles and they were having fun.
Right.
But having fun and like ended up and getting all these hobbies and things, I mean, it just started, it really opened up a whole new world, and I didn't know who I was, you know, for so long. And I started to learn a lot about myself through kind of pushing my mind. And that's a whole other topic I can get into. I pushed it to some pretty serious places, and I think I'm just getting started on some of that too.
Well, so I want to explore like something you said. So you did spend a couple of years in a 12-step program.
Yeah,
right?
I did about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And then what was that experience like? What is your theory about that? You said you had your own theories about that. And like, that's not the only way
No.
to stay sober,
No, but it was.
But it is a way. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I went down because I came out back and forth to the beach and sober livings from the desert.
Yeah.
And went down the Newport Club, and I remember going down there because I was from the desert, like little desert rat, little kid, like little hoodlum. But I'd come out here, everyone's tan and good shape. The girls are beautiful, and but I couldn't get it out here. I ended up back in the desert, and it never really worked until this last time, of course. But so. Some of the guys that were in my house and the whole community, this whole sober living community that Brandon created, man, like rolled with each other in packs to meetings, like we're part of a crew, and it was so cool. You're a part of something, man. It was part of something good. We helped people, and we were this crew that the accountability was strong. And, it was like, I didn't really get to dive in too deep, you know what I mean? Like, I did my steps, and I didn't know what was a good sponsor, what was a bad one.
Right.
I just looked at certain people and asked them, and these guys, they had maybe some good intentions, but, they didn't take it too seriously, and were, not clinicians or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So, I never really got to dive too deep, and started doing my own therapy stuff, but... I thought the biggest part of it was the community of it, the accountability, just hearing other people's stories and stuff like that. But the biggest part for me, I think, was being a part of something, the community of it was really, really cool. I love business since I was young, and there's businessmen and people in sports and all this hodgepodge of people that
it's a wide variety of people in those rooms.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
man,
It's
and
cool.
It was so cool to see. I mean, so that was the big part. I think getting a sponsor. I ended up getting this guy after some of these guys didn't take it too serious. I was diving deep, but I'm sitting there doing steps and they're on their phone, and I'm like, man, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it wasn't cool. But I didn't know any better, so I ended up getting this really cool, sponsor that really helped me, and we dove in pretty deep and, planted some seeds, and so that was a really cool experience. But I ended up kind of evolving. I don't want to say evolving, but wanted to go out and try other things, so I took some other paths, over the last 10 years. Yeah.
What are those other paths, if you know?
Yes.
Let me ask. Talk to me about that.
So
you got a lot out of the 12 steps.
For sure.
Doing that, and it was a good thing for you.
Yeah.
But then,
it's a good starting point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And I didn't like some of the things that people, because they call it the program, and I think some of it is you're kind of getting programmed. I think it's good in some sense, and there's some where it can kind of hold you back in ways that, like you have a drink, you're going to break out in handcuffs, all these things. And probably the majority probably will.
Right.
But I wasn't that.
Yeah.
Right?
You're a heroin addict.
Yeah. I mean,
that's different than an alcoholic.
You're right. So, I'm not going to go, of course I'm not going to go shoot dope. You know what I mean? But I went out and started exploring. So what I did, I ended up going to church. I met this really cool, I've always wanted to try it out. So I ended up going to church on a Wednesday night.
Where'd you go to church?
It was Newport Mesa. It was over by the fair.
Okay.
But so while it was there, now it's somewhere else. I tried that. I went there for maybe a year and a half, something like that. And me and the pastor, his name's Jordan. He's still a great friend of mine. And then I started to kind of go off on another path. Well, then I, read a book by a guy named Terrence McKenna. Do you know who that is?
No.
So Terrence McKenna is like the godfather of like psychedelics.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went down this path, did a lot of my own research, and kind of was trying to get away from what I was hearing and listening to. Let me think on my own here. I have good intentions for myself.
Form your own opinion.
Then, let me go off and check, And so I did a lot of research on psychedelics, did a lot of preparation, and I was around even my brother, the way he would think, and he would you know, kind of kept slipping here and there, and that was my only mentor. And then I started to outgrow him, you know. Meanwhile, like I said, I was getting into skydiving, racing triathlons, and I mean, just
coming out of your skin
boom.
and coming into your own.
Yeah, man, it was perfect timing. Freaking ripped up, you know, like pushing myself, like becoming something. And I ended up one day we go out and play volleyball, and I've been waiting for 3 months for this. Prepared, read, listened, did the whole jam, and started my path with mushrooms, and it absolutely changed my life.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, and I kind of took that path along with some mentors in that space. And so, like, you know, once a year I would do it to kind of check in with myself. And it's kind of been a part of my path this whole time. Like, never went back to any of that stuff, but that was something that opened my eyes up. And, you know, I've heard about it, but one thing, stepping into it and being guided through it. I mean, you know, like, my dad committed suicide 2015, you know. My brother overdosed in August 2019. You know, in the skydive, you know, I've lost multiple friends passing from skydiving, and, you know, built and lost businesses, made a lot of money, lost everything. You know, but I never resorted back to going using dope.
Right.
Like, what the hell is that going to do? But it became no longer an option. I got into running and sports and surfing and all of these things that were so good for me, and on top of writing.
Yeah.
That when these really challenging times would start to happen, I knew how to cope. You know, like, when my dad first happened, you know, that was an interesting time. My brother and I was still there. You know, we still had each other. And then when my brother passed, well, I really had no one, you know.
Yeah, you were alone,
So, you know, the thing I learned over all the years is become my own best friend.
Right.
You know, and I have my own back. Like, I've never really been able to trust anyone. You know, I've wanted to, but it's been really hard for me because I've only experienced some pretty tough stuff. So it's very few. So I'm very like a dog from the shelter. I'm like, you know, I come into a new family, you know, I'm kind of cautious. And but, you know, like, for instance, I really got into running in the ocean. I do it every morning. I did it this morning too. I go and do a sand run, do my little workout, and I swim in the ocean. Winter, you name it. I love, if it's cold, better.
Trunking it in the ocean.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, man,
every
crazy.
morning.
Yeah.
But you get shut, you know? It's great, man. I crave it.
Cold plunge.
Yeah.
How long are you in there for?
I'll say like 5 minutes.
5
Sometimes
minutes,
it's just a minute, you know, if I just boom, get in, get
Make
connected.
sure you get in.
Yeah, I come out there, I'm barefoot running, doing my praying and my talking every morning, and now I crave the cold water. But my brother passed, you know, I heard about 8 o'clock at night. My stepdad calls me crying. He's like, you know, Dustin passed. What? I'm like, calmly, I'm like, okay.
Was it fentanyl or was it fentanyl?
Because he didn't want to go back to heroin. Because there's fentanyl in heroin.
Yeah.
Right? And so he went and got these blue pills.
Mm-hmm.
And he took one of the blue pills. He was actually out with our doctor, and someone was doing some business development for us on a fishing trip. And I was supposed to go with him.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't want I get seasick. I tried it once with them. And I was like, that's just not my jam, dude. It's kind of boring. So I went up with my ex-fiance at the time, up fishing near Mammoth in Bridgeport, and where my brother and I used to fish as kids. And I was like, no, I don't want to go, man. And one, I just didn't really want to be around him anymore.
Right.
I just felt, you know, I just didn't want to be around. And they do this business, you know, there's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be around it. And so I went up there, you know, had a pretty amazing trip. But what the day before I left, my brother and I were playing volleyball. To back this up, this is pretty wild. So we're playing volleyball with our clients. We used to do it every single week for Sunset. And we got done. My brother recently relapsed, and he had chicken skin, but he's still out there playing volleyball, whatever. And because he ended up living back down in the desert. And so anyways, we're walking back to his truck for Sunset. This is the last time I saw him. And we go walking over to the back of the truck, and I was like, Dustin, like, what are you doing, man? You know, like, you know, and he wanted to have drinks with his wife at the time.
Yeah.
Who was not the best influence. And, you know, I was like, Dustin, I'm like, you can't do that, man. Like, you're full speed, dude. You know, and probably seeing me go and try my mushrooms, right? And maybe thinking that's very similar to going and having a cocktail or some pills and not having a damn clue. Whatever it may be. That's one of my theories. I don't know. But we go to the back of the truck, and I talked to him. I was like, you know what, Dust? Like, I hope, man, you got to be safe. And, you know, like, I can't tell you anything else, you know,
Yeah.
like I've told you too many times, you know? So I was like, all right, well, I love you. And I gave him a big hug, smacked him on his butt cheeks, you know, and we get into each other's trucks. He got in his, I got mine, and I'm about to back up, and he's all, Pete, and he rolls down the window, and then, like, I roll down mine too, and I look over at him, and he's like, I love you, and with these big, like, this stare, man, like, like, to the point to where when he looked at me, I was like, I love you too, man, like, and I backed up, rolled my window down, and I just looked at his truck, pulled out of the state park, went down PCH. His truck was still there. I'm driving by. I'm like, what was that? And then, you know, after I did my fishing trip, I come back. No one heard from his wife. Everyone's like, where's Dustin at? He didn't come back from the fishing trip. Well, he took his pills and fell asleep in his truck. And and then the cops like apparently found him. But the part that I know he passed, but I really don't really even know to this day exactly if that's, I know he passed in his truck, but I never knew, you know, like after his wife got pretty evil after that point, and I heard nothing from her because she was partying with him and doing all this stuff and knew not to where like that's what I was told. You know, I've done my own research to see if, you know, what really happened on it, but that's what I was told. But yeah, he ended up passing his truck, and they like apparently, I think, found him the next day in the truck. Oh man. So, yeah, I hear that, you know, 8 o'clock at night, and then I wake up in the morning, and I program myself so much. You know, I ran hundreds of miles. You know, I pushed myself out of planes and hot air balloon, you know, or riding and business, whatever. I pushed my mind to reprogram it. Because I didn't like the way my family thought, you know. So I woke up crying, immediately went for a sand run, you know, dropping to my knees, just like, you know, and then jumped in the ocean, and I'm sitting in there just kind of crying, and I was like, Dust, look, man, like, and I had the detox at the time, and I had this, you know, like, I'm driven to help people, you know, and myself, take care of me too. To where I was in the water crying, I was like, you know what, Dust? I was like, I gotta leave this here, man. You know, I was like, when I get out, I gotta go back to work. You know, I mean, I gotta go back to life. You know, and you know, kind of just went through processes of that to where I ended up getting energy from it. You know,
it drove me,
man. You know, like I'm the only one left. And I got some from my dad, my brother, you know, like pretty big things. And the way they went out, you know, my dad hung himself, you know, which is like, I even saw where he did it. We went back to his pad, you know, like the visuals of the things. Yeah. And we went through it, and went really deep with writing and therapy on it, and kind of got lighter and lighter and lighter. And, you know, established different relationships with them. One, I was angry. You know, I go to where my brother's at. He's in the wall. My dad's there in a different spot. And I go over and fist pound my brother, saying, like, yeah, what's up, dude? And I'm like, all right, so what's up, Dad? So, you know, and then it changed to where I would talk to him differently when I go there. I talk to him differently now. But what it did is made me really explore my whole spirituality, man. Like, you know, to zoom out, you know, of this whole space. This life has an expiration date on it, and I want to live my days as peaceful as possible. Yeah. And to pull off things that people would never expect, you know, a dropout kid from the streets. And so I, you know, over time I've just pushed myself. You know, for me, I'm scared of everything. You know, I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of...
Wait, you're scared of heights and you jump out of airplanes all the time?
Yeah, for sure.
That's weird.
If I got 2 parachutes on. But if I'm next to a cliff, dude... If I'm next to a cliff, I'm like,
okay,
no, man.
So you got 2 parachutes on, you're okay. But if you walk up to a cliff, you're like, I don't want to.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
I have buddies who walk right up there. I'm like,
that makes sense.
You know, there's water down there. I still get nervous. So, you know, I just kind of evolved. And after, you know, he passed, I really kind of stepped it up, man, and kind of started pushing it. That message came along with me. And with me getting better at sports, you know, I pushed motocross really far, and I pushed skydiving really far. And, you know, really high achievers in that action sport world started gravitating towards me because, you know, I started Epic Journey and started putting events on. But it just, I thrive in that, you know, and, you know, I started to build this really cool community of high achievers in
That's
that.
great.
You know, like they're like big brothers is what they were.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about Epic Journey.
So after my brother passed, probably like 3 weeks later, my brother's wife fired me from the business. You know, so it's like brother.
'Cause you guys were partners.
Not her, no.
Oh.
Well, my brother owned majority share of the
Yeah,
company.
sure. Okay.
So, you know, her and the other lady, maybe it's like a month or two, something like that, fired me from the business. And so it was like, bam, bam, like, wow.
Yeah.
So I was talking with Jenny about this on the podcast, on hers. And so I'm like, oh, man, what, you know, like what do I do? You know, like I haven't worked for anyone my whole life, you know, beside from my dad. I've owned my own stuff, you know,
Right.
and I feel like only comfortable in one space, you know. It's weird to work for some. It's just weird for me, scary for me, you know. Like I work so hard, I don't want that because I don't know that, and I'm better placed in certain positions.
Sure.
You know. So I'm down at a place next to Longboarders down on Main Street. And so at that time, man, I was like super tuned in. You know, I was doing all the right stuff and just like, you know, open and receptible to intuition and, you know, just really, really like tuned in at that time, which was really good for this. And I sit down at this place having breakfast, and I'm sitting there, and, you know, I started to get really tuned in into the intuitive voice, a little whisper, a little hey, you know, not the critical loud thinking. And I'm sitting there at breakfast, and this little whisper comes through like, hey, write this down. Because I come up with the name of it, and I just didn't know what to do. It was just sitting in my journal, like what I was going to do. And this lady comes by with a pen and a receipt, and I was like, hey, can I have that? She's like, what? It's like, can I have your pen and your receipt? And just straight download of ideas, and I started writing this whole concept down and flowed with it. And afterwards, I kind of like snapped out of it and looked. I'm like, well, what's this? And started putting a real plan to it, and started pulling off events, you know,
Nice.
skydive events and events out in the desert and off-road toys. Like, we put some crazy stuff on, like where, you know, I'd bring 150 people out skydiving. I'd get this big military plane. We'd run out the back of it. Then I'd get a hot air balloon to meet us out by Salton Sea. And on top of that, I had all these like razors, all these off-road buggies. So we'd caravan 100 plus of us, you know, from skydiving out to the desert to go out and camp. And I got food. And I had a hot air balloon that was going up and down all night, doing off-roading all night till freaking sunrise. And, you know, and then I started getting paid for this.
Nice.
I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
And, I kept doing all that stuff and rolled that momentum off into, you know, another bigger business, you know, but yeah.
Love it. And then tell me about your book, Epic Journal. There it is.
Yeah.
Give me a copy of it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I've
for
had
sure.
fun with it.
So, you know, I'd probably say the last 9 years of working in behavioral health, I've worked with a lot of people, had a lot of conversations, and I applied. You know, I've been writing since I was younger. You know, my dad always said, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist, you know? And so I've written down very methodically the way I approach life, conversations, business, sports. You know, like, I can manifest things. Everything I've ever wanted to do, I've done. Everyone I wanted to meet, I've met.
Right.
And through writing and channeling that and shutting out the noise of the world. And I spend a lot of time by myself at the beach. I spend a lot of time with me up in Joshua Tree, you know, hippieing out up there, tuning in, you know. And everything I've wanted to do, I've touched. Now, some things didn't work, but I experienced them. And, you know, and it wasn't just winging it when I would do things. You know, like, I think to a lot of people in life, there's layers to when someone does something. You know, like when someone, you know, does a podcast, there's layers of why they want to do it. When someone is hanging out the side of an airplane, you know, there is a reason of what they're using that for.
Yeah.
When someone's doing whatever thing, so, you know, I ended up writing this whole way of life through all my books that I've read and podcasts, just obsessively for years. Then I started to write in a way that would help someone. Not planning to write a book, like, you know, I have no education, right? Like, I knew how to write, but I didn't know any format of it or anything like that. So he's like a father figure to me. His name's Carl. He owns Skydive Elsinore. Shout out Carl again. You're getting so much limelight, dude.
Yeah.
Jeez. So, you know, over the years, Carl has been just an amazing man. You know, just has a groovy way of doing life and just super cool, man. And he's someone special that says these things to you and plants these seeds, you know? And I listen, for sure, you know? And so back in the day, I used to write these really long captions of my Instagram posts. Not a lot of people would, you know, like, it wasn't a big social following, but I really put a lot of thought into what I wrote. And really cool photos, pulling things off, like really trying to inspire people to go out there and live life, you know, like a purposeful, fulfilling life. And he hands me a folder one day of screenshots of everything, of all my photos and my captions, and he's like, "Hey, you should write a book." He's like, "Call it the Epic Journal," you know, like the roadmap.
Love it.
And I was like, "Oh, cool, man." It sat with me for a bit. He even had a cool drawing and stuff. And one day I'm reading this, you know, my girlfriend at the time, she had this journal called the 5-Minute Journal, and I opened it. Her sister got it, and I was like, "These exist? Like, this is great." I never heard of like a guided journal. And so next day I wake up, you know, and started pulling all of my journals out, spread them all over my office, and started just flowing, you know, getting all of my writings down, typing it all up into some type of manuscript that made sense. And then it started to come together as like principles. So in this, there's, you know, 28 principles. Originally I had 33, but they're a little like advanced. You know, I wanted this to be kind of basic. So I got to a certain point putting piles, and just this huge freaking pile of like a mad scientist, and started getting them better and better and better. And I got all this stuff over, I don't know, a year, 8 months, 6 months, something like that. And it started getting better and better. And then I reached out to a publishing company. I was like, "Look, I got this thing pretty good to a certain point, but I'm stuck." So I got another writer, an editor, and formatters, and hired this whole team on, and it helped. And we worked together for a while. And yeah, I mean, then I got to a really good point with them. And then being in behavioral health, you know, you end up knowing some people that are, that are pretty amazing. Like, like we're talking about Dr. Tucker.
Yeah.
Shout out Dr. Tucker.
Hey, Dr. Tucker.
He's amazing. Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And, you know, people that would take the time, you know, I'm like, "Hey, can you look through this and just tear it apart?" You know? And I kept doing that to other clinicians and people, and from, you know, professional athletes to clinicians to the average Joe, well, you name it. People tore it apart, and it got better and better. And, yeah, I came up with this. So it's 28 principles. It's essentially like everything you read or listen to essentially boils down to the same things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, not too many people are coming up with a new concept, you know? It's essentially like, hey, dumb it down. And the best way of we're working with a lot of people is not telling them what to do. You know what I mean? It's like asking them questions, come up with your own ideas, you know what I mean? And so what I did is put 28 principles in there, and they're all prompted and examples, and kind of try to teach people to learn more about themselves, what they're truly capable of, you know, like, and learn eventually by the end of it to go into a blank journal and learn how to design your life and become your own best friend, you know, through pen and paper and, you know, living it out.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
cool. All right, one last question. I ask everybody this at the end. What's your message to that person that's out there struggling with mental health, addiction, substance abuse? What do you want to say to that person if they're listening to this?
Someone's struggling. Well, well, I think you need to reach out to someone. I think that, you know, I think in this time there's a lot of resources out there, you know. I think just boiling it down to find out how to reach out to me, reach out to you through Instagram,
Absolutely.
you name it,
Yeah.
guarantee we'll be on that like white on
Yeah,
rice.
absolutely.
There is a fleet of people that are just striving to go out there and help people. There's nonprofits if you don't have money. There is so many ways to go out and get help.
There
If you
is.
truly want it, you know, like there is a whole bunch of people that want to help.
Yeah.
You know, there's people's jobs to go out there and find people to help.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, you know, Google, you know,
Yeah.
but if I can give a message to somebody, learn to become your own best friend. You can't go and do anything else in life unless you truly become and have your best interest and learn to become your best bud, because through the dark nights and the dark times, late at night, whatever it is, people aren't always going to be there for you. And if you can truly learn how to become your own best friend, you have a friend for life.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Preston, thanks for coming on.
Cool, man.
It's good to get you know you.
Much love, brother.
All right, for sure.